Dobre dieci. Okay. Привет, как дела? That's everything. Like, I'm learning, so I'll get better. Well, thank you for coming, especially being the last talk of the day. And I'm being the only one between you and coffee and probably drinks later. So I'm going to talk about Kubernetes, continuous integration, and continuous delivery. So a little bit about me. I'm a principal software engineer at CloudBees, which is the company that hires a lot of Jenkins developers. So who uses Jenkins? Raise your hand. A lot of people. Okay, I wrote a Kubernetes plugin for Jenkins. So who uses Kubernetes? Just some people. In production? This is getting better and better every time I ask this question. Who is using Jenkins in Kubernetes? All right. Cool. I'm a long-time contributor at different software foundations, open source, Maven, Eclipse, Puppet. So you probably heard about some of these projects. You probably love Maven or hate it, one or the other. And I'm also a part of the Google Developer Experts that we go around and talk about Kubernetes and things like that. And that's a little bit about me. And who here likes slides? Nobody likes slides, so that's good because this is the only slide I have. I'm going to do everything. It's going to be a demo today. So, okay, exit. No, here. So I have, okay, let's make this bigger. I have two, let's make it a little bit here, like that. I have an application deployed. This is the great Croc Hunter game. And I have this deployed into the staging environment. If you don't see the URL, it says staging, and down here it says staging 2. Make it that big. And it's a great game where you can go around and kill crocodiles with lasers, right? What could be more fun than that? And I have the same application deployed here in another environment called production. And you see the host name is production, the URL says production, and it's the same, it's the same application. Same application, same release, release 0040. So this is something that is in GitHub. I can go to github.com/Carlos/Croc Hunter Jenkins X. And I'll go into detail later on what are we using here. But I just want to show you, I have this application, and now I want to make a change to this application. So I'm going to follow the typical flow in GitHub. That would be, I'm going to create a pull request with the changes I want to do. So one of the things I want to change is, this is a very simple application. I'm going to go and change here the JavaScript file. And I'm going to make it like this, just a little change, create a branch, no lasers. So we want to remove lasers because the environmentalists have complained, right, that the killing crocodiles with lasers is a bit too bad. So we're going to make a small change to that. I'm going to create a branch. I'm going to commit my change, no lasers. And I'm going to create a pull request. I could keep doing this on the command line, but I could also do it in the web interface. Hub pull request. Yeah. Wait. Did I have it? Yes, no lasers. I have to push. Important. And I can create my pull request. If the push works. Do we have internet? Do we? Okay, so something is crashing here. Of course, there's always something that can go wrong, and that will go wrong. What the hell? Do I have to kill things? No, everything's good. Where is my Chrome? This is working, this is working. Okay, so Chrome is crashed or something. All right. There's always something that can go wrong, yeah? Let's kill Chrome. Let's kill things. Okay. This is the first time this has happened. Every time it's a different error. But yeah, you would expect that Chrome would work. Let's see what happens with the push. I think we lost internet or something. Wow. Yeah, I lost internet, I think, but it's not just internet. Everything is crashed. My whole laptop is not working now. Chrome is not starting. We unplug this. Okay, so Chrome is not starting. Let's try Firefox. Well, Chrome is not starting, it's not right. This is something. Well, I'm thinking I might have to restart my laptop at this point because nothing is working. Wow. Let's try logging out quickly. This is probably the worst demo I ever done. Jesus. Awesome. I think it's rebooting now, but I don't know what's happening. But yeah, there's always something that can go wrong. I mean, I can talk about whatever you want in the meantime. Okay, this is starting. So what I tried to demo, and I'll try to do it again, is how you create a pull request, you make a change, you submit that as that pull request of that change. And what I'm using here is Jenkins X. Anybody heard about Jenkins X? Yeah, some people. So Jenkins X is a distribution that includes Jenkins and a few other things and makes them work nice in Kubernetes, both running in Kubernetes and developing applications for Kubernetes. So what Jenkins X includes, it includes Nexus for repository manager, it includes a Docker registry, it includes a Helm chart repository. Helm charts are packages for Kubernetes that include all the Kubernetes configuration and and it includes all the Docker images. So it's a very nice way to do. You can do a JX create cluster, and it will even create a cluster in Kubernetes for you. So you can, if you have an account in Google Cloud, in Amazon, or in different cloud providers, it will create a cluster of Kubernetes in there, and it will install Jenkins X. And if you have a Kubernetes cluster already, you can install in that cluster. So it offers both options. And once you have it installed, it will allow you to do what's called GitOps, which is basically everything is centered in Git, in the Git issues and pull requests. So, okay, this came back up. I will have to do, no, I don't want to do this. X, Hunter, okay, that's it, hub, pull request. No lasers. Wow. I didn't do the push, yeah. Okay, now it works. Whoa. Crazy. No lasers, yeah. Okay, so this has created a pull request. I can go to that pull request and see my change. And what's going to happen here is that Jenkins is going to pick up this pull request. I have Jenkins running here. And it's going to, I think I have to refresh this. You see, it has detected the pull request and is building it. I can go to Kubernetes and say kubectl, get pods, and watch what's happening. And you will see here this one, the container is creating. So it's creating a new pod in Kubernetes, a new container, set of containers that is going to do the build of my pull requests. Up to there is like normal use case, working with pull request branches on GitHub. So what's going to happen afterwards is that it's going to deploy that pull request application to a totally separate new environment. And I will get a new environment for just that PR. My changes are going to be available in that environment, and I can go and see what happened in my pull request. And you will see that as soon as this ends building. I'll show you what the cluster looks like. So this is a Kubernetes engine in Google. I have two clusters running. I'm using this one here. I have now 3 machines, 12 vCPUs, and also the nice thing about Kubernetes Engine in Google is that it just offers you checkboxes, and you can enable auto-scaling and a bunch of different things. So if there's not enough room in my cluster, it's going to add more machines automatically. I don't have to do anything. So I can keep building more stuff, and my cluster is going to grow and shrink anytime. So if we look here, this is still creating. We can go to the Jenkins and see the status of my pull request. It's waiting for the container to come up. And you see here, container creating probably means it may be downloading the Docker image. If it was not available in the machine, it's doing just the normal setup. If it's the first time, it takes a bit longer because it has to download the images, but the next times it will be faster. While that happens, I'll show you. So what I was talking about, the environments, Jenkins X get env. Jenkins X offers you this command line where you can see things, right? I have an environment called staging. I have an environment called production. The 2 applications I showed you before, running in staging and production, they're running one in each environment. And you can see that each environment has a GitHub repository. So if I go to my staging repository in GitHub and look at the one file here, I'll see in Git what applications do I have deployed in that environment. So I have the Croc Hunter application in version 0040. And what is very important on a GitOps approach is that everything goes through Git. You don't touch your environments at all in the machines or anything directly. If I want to upgrade my version, I would come here, create a pull request, and change something. But what's most interesting about Jenkins X is that it's going to do that also for me. Jenkins X is going to come here whenever I merge something into master, and it's going to automatically update in my staging environment. So my staging environment is going to always be up to date with master of my application. I also have the production environment, which has a different URL, and that's a bit different. The production environment, it's manually promoted. So if I want a specific version of my application, I can go and say, promote this version to production. So staging is always up to date with master. Production, I can manually tell when to operate. So let's go back. Okay, so my Go build is running here, and it ran already, and it's now terminating the pod. So if I can go to Jenkins and see that the build was a success here at the bottom. It has done its Go build, and it's built a Docker image and a Helm chart and everything for me from just my PR. So if I go to the PR, you will notice that Jenkins has automatically created this comment for me. And what I mentioned is this PR is already available in this environment. So I can go and see that PR. And you see that the environment and the version is different, and the commit ID is different. And if I go, I can try my application, and yes, I see that instead of lasers, I'm throwing fish. So my change it looks good. And now I can go and say, okay, it looks good to me. Just merge the pull request. Let's delete the branch too. And this is going to trigger a number of new cascaded builds. So this is going to build master now with my new change, and it's going to automatically deploy that to a staging. And because that's going to take a while, this is a staging, so we'll see later, we'll refresh it later as soon as this finish, and we'll see how that has evolved. Now, other things that I can do with Jenkins X that are interesting, I can create a quick start. So you can import your existing projects or create new projects. So I can do a create quick start. And I can choose from a predefined list of templates. So I can go and say, create a Golang example. So let's call it Golang DevOps Pro. Golang DevOps Pro. And yes, okay, I need to get my API token. Don't look at this. Okay. So this is basically creating a new Git repo. Yes. And predefining all the templates and created both a Docker file, a Helm chart for it, and all this infrastructure for me. And it's going to be automatically added to Jenkins. And you will get all the automated CI/CD for this new project. You have some commands here that tells you how to, from the command line, get the logs and how to access pipelines and applications. So there's everything can be accessed from the command line if you want. But I can. So let's go to my GitHub repo, and this is now in GitHub, and I can also say, well, this is going to do a deploy. And while that happens, I can go and say, let's change this a little bit. Change the main. Let's edit this and say HTTP Golang awesome HTTP example. And I can go and create a new branch and create a PR. Update the main, yes, I want to update. And now in my Jenkins, I have my new project, Golang DevOps Pro. Master is building, pull request is building, and it's going to automatically do what I mentioned. So let's see if my Croc Hunter demo, master is still building. And how much time do we have? Okay, so another, well, this builds, I'll show you something else that we are kind of working on, because this is still running Jenkins, right? And you have Jenkins running all the time, and one thing we've built is what we call a serverless Jenkins. So if I switch to my another cluster I have running, this one, and I switch to another example, serverless. Okay, I'll show you in a second. So I have my GitHub repository, which is Croc Hunter Jenkins X serverless. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create a new pull request there. And git, run, no lasers, and we main. Croc Hunter, no, not that one. Yes. crochunter.go. I'm gonna edit here. My change. Same thing I did before. No lasers. Git push have pull request. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing in a different Git repository. One thing you will notice in this case, and this is a totally different cluster, installation of the new Jenkins X with the serverless Jenkins. So you will notice that I got a comment. So we are making use of a project from Kubernetes called Pro, and basically this everything goes through GitHub Comments. So you see here that I have to, if I am in the list of owners in my repository, I can approve pull request, I can do comments on my pull request and trigger actions. So there's a bunch of actions that I can trigger. So if I do new, my bot, I have a bot that is basically gonna talk to me through the GitHub comments. You'll see, how is this useful? Well, you can get cat pictures. That's very useful, of course. But I can also say, test this. And now this is what's gonna trigger a test in Jenkins. With a big difference this time, if I show you the kubectl get pods.watch, is that I didn't have any Jenkins running in this cluster, and this comment will trigger a new Jenkins that is optimized just for running one job. It's going to run that one job, and then it's going to disappear. So I don't need to have Jenkins running all the time. So it's totally like in a serverless way of creating things and then destroying them at the end. And this will eventually show up here if I'm in the right cluster. kubectl. Yes, I'm in the right cluster. So it will eventually take a few seconds to show up. Other things that you can see here is I have another bot or a status check from Tide. Tide is another project that we took from Kubernetes. Basically, this will wait and make the pull request not mergeable until I approve it or somebody approves it. So one thing I can do after my test runs and I get the OK from Jenkins, I can do /approve, and then it will automatically merge my pull requests. So it's all going through comments with these bots. There it is. So the build has started, serverless Jenkins. I can see here at the bottom these new builds. If you are familiar, we're using different projects. We're using a new project called Knative from Google that will spawn that Jenkins master and will do the whole synchronization of the Jenkins master. And then the Jenkins master is going to start, as I said, and do the build and do it the same way. Let's take a pause now and go back to my previous cluster to see if my previous environment has been built while this continues the building. So let's go to my previous cluster and JX. I can do JX get apps. And if you notice here, something that has changed is that staging is version 0041, while production is version 0040. So once I merge that pull request, staging has been updated. So I can go now to my staging URL. So the previous commit was 70A something. And you see that my commit has changed and the release version has changed, and my staging environment has the contents of my pull request and the master branch. So that looks good. I have a staging looks good. Production still runs the old version. So I now can say JX promote --env production -- version 0041. And this will go and do the promotion from one environment to another. Now, I showed you before what the environments look like. They are just GitHub repositories. So if you see what happened automatically, while I was talking, was when the master branch was updated, there was a pull request here that automatically updated to 0041. It was automatically created, the pull request, with the change of the version, automatically tested, and automatically merged. So I didn't have to do anything to update the staging. If I go to the production repository, let's see. This is still not created. The pull request has not been created yet, but it's going to do the same thing. If we look at something that I did a month ago, it's the same case. When I do the JX promote, it's going to create a pull request. It's going to go and change the version and merge that. And my Kubernetes cluster is always going to be up to date with whatever is defined in my GitHub repository. So it's always the source of truth. And so eventually, if we look at, it didn't go because I didn't answer the questions. Carlos, yes. So you see, created a pull request in my production environment. That's where it's changing the version. And then it's gonna wait until that pull request goes through the steps. Now, let's see. Let's go back to the other cluster where I was doing the serverless stuff. And too many clusters. Yes, this one is still pending. Because we're still starting with this serverless project is pretty new, and there's no UI yet. We are working on creating a UI and optimizing things, but you can always go to the Cloud Console and let's see, and get the logs from the containers. So you could come here or write something or a script or UI on top of this and access the logs from the different containers that are running. There's gotta be one here, 1328. One here's, here it is. This is from the serverless container. And you can see here if I spawn everything, those are all the details from the logs from my container. Let's see, that's still building. Oh, it finished building. This is the serverless GitHub repo. So same thing, I can go and see an environment, see that my changes are in there, and that's the same as before. But now, as I said, what I can do and say here, I mean, this should be refreshed, serverless Jenkins succeeded. I can go and say approve. And I don't have to do anything. This will get automatically merged. Here it is. the bot added the approved label, and the Tide will eventually merge this. So you see here the labels that the bots have added. Approve, and it's a small size change, and that's it. That was automatically merged by the bot. And we have a UI that we have created in, oops. This is something that we have created in the company. So it allows you to see these things. So I can see what pull requests are in the pipeline, what is my staging environment, what version, what is my production environment, and I can go and click and see builds, pods running. I could see the issues in Jira, what commits are referenced, and everything like that, and what pipelines are set up in the environment. Okay. So I believe it's now time for questions. No?
3 minutes.
3 more minutes. Okay. So I get all of this from the UI. I can go and promote it. I can view the app. This is the pull request URL that I have created. So this is a very new project. And another cool thing, and the last thing I'd show you, is that with JX I can do a create dev pod. And a dev pod is, I can select what type of dev pod I want. So let's say it's a Maven. This will basically create a pod running in Kubernetes. Okay, Helm, update, init, update. Upgrade. Yeah, this is now going to take a little bit, but I can create a dev pod, which is a container running in my Kubernetes cluster, and I can get a shell into that container, and I can do whatever quick start I choose. May even go, I can do my development in that container remotely, and it will sync my local directory with the remote directory, so I always have the files in sync. And I can do Docker builds, I can do compilation, I can do whatever I want remotely, which makes it a lot faster. I don't have to download anything to my local machine, everything runs on the cloud. So it's really nice for things like building Docker images and pushing them. So you don't have to do everything locally, you can just do it remotely. So that's the dev pod feature we have. And if you are in a project that is already Jenkins X enabled, it will do all that, create all that, copy that project over the source files and all. So I think with that, I guess I can leave it to questions. Yeah. Yes. One question, yes.
So my name is Rafi, and my question is, will this project will be open source or it will be available?
Everything but the new UI that I showed at the last minute is open source. Yeah.
And it will be the same with the next step of production, yeah? So can we use it as an open source product as Jenkins?
Yeah, Jenkins X is open source.
And one more question about bots. Is clean with Jenkins X or it's separate product?
What?
GitHub bots, which you showed us.
No, it's part of Jenkins X. So the new versions of Jenkins X, and that's the work in progress, when you install Jenkins X, it will create all these bots for you running on your Kubernetes cluster. All the bots that were commenting and approving, waiting for my commands and all that, that comes with Jenkins X. Yes.
And there is some config files in this repo. Yeah, correct?
there is configuration in your Kubernetes cluster. When Jenkins X installs, it will ask you, what's your GitHub username, give me permissions and all that stuff, and then it will create that for you. The only thing that you need in your repo, if I go to the serverless one, is that you need an owners file that basically says who can do the approve command and who can review the PRs. That's the only thing you need in your GitHub repo.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Please explain the idea of serverless Jenkins.
Yeah, so let's say we have customers that have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of builds. There's a point where one server only will not scale. So you don't want one Jenkins master having all these things. What we do is now we spawn smaller Jenkins, serverless Jenkins, and then that way it will scale as much as Kubernetes scales, so we don't have any limitation. So you don't need to plan for capacity, you don't need to grow your file system, you don't need to give you more CPU or memory, you don't have to worry about anything like that. It's serverless in the sense that every new build triggers a new container, it's going to do the thing, and it's going to die. If you have auto-scaling enabled in your cluster, this is going to also grow your cluster. You don't need to worry about capacity planning machines. You don't have to worry about anything. It's totally being for a less operational cost.
But in that serverless world, isn't there a data store that would also be a bottleneck because Jenkins configuration is database, or do you externalize that and deploy it, the configuration as a stateless function? How does that work?
Jenkins X uses Kubernetes APIs for storing data. So it will scale as much as Kubernetes will scale. There is, for everything you see here, only the currently running execution time is what it's stored. So you cannot go back and say, give me the build results from 1 year ago. That's the only limitation. You would have to store that somewhere else if you wanted to. But everything that runs now, it's being stored in Kubernetes API, so that's etcd, and that scales pretty well and gives you high availability and everything. So yes, you cannot, it will scale as much as Kubernetes scales, and Kubernetes scales a lot.
One question, what is your key feature? Because there is several such products already up and running, for example, Azure DevOps, Rancher, and so on, and they provide almost the same possibilities.
But this is not to run serverless functions. This is to run Jenkins as a serverless application.
You are not correct, because, for example, Azure DevOps is completely, you don't need any servers. It's all running by Azure. So it's completely serverless.
Okay, so you're talking about competition of Jenkins. What other competition of Jenkins are doing?
My question is, what is your, what you said, this is your key feature, because you can say that we have this and nobody has this.
Okay. Well, the very first thing that Jenkins has that nobody has is market share. Jenkins has, I don't know if it's 60-70% of the CI/CD industry is using Jenkins. What this allows is for people that are using Jenkins today, traditional Jenkins, to move into Kubernetes and not have the bottlenecks and the issues that you would have with traditional Jenkins. So using containers, scaling, all those features. And Jenkins has 2,000 plugins or something that you probably shouldn't use 2,000 of them, but there's a lot of plugins that allow you to do a lot of things with Jenkins, and this allows you to keep using those. Yes?
Thank you for your talk. Could you please tell a little bit more about the history of Jenkins X, or its roadmap, and the company and community behind this project?
Yeah, so Jenkins X is a project that was started like a year ago, and it's open source, and there's a community behind. There's the Jenkins community also supporting Jenkins X, so it's not a fork of Jenkins or anything like that. It uses Jenkins, it contributes things back to Jenkins. CloudBees as a company, we are also supporting Jenkins X and building features on top and all that. So it's an open source project as any other. So it's not commercial. It's not. I mean, we will build stuff that is going to be commercial, but what I show, except the last UI, that's all open source. And the roadmap is we're going to be improving the serverless capacities and more cloud. We are betting on Kubernetes for everything. We are betting that Kubernetes is the de facto standard for running these things now. Okay. Спасибо.